Well, hey, Vision. Okay, you weren't expecting that today, were you? Wow. I told you we'd have something fun, and you got to love getting that team up here, letting their hair down. Well, if they had, some of them didn't have hair, but if they let their hair down and just, having some fun with a song and taking a concept about this guy Nehemiah, and we're going to flesh that out today. And then, hey, how about that Chainbreaker song? I mean, that's something special that actually we came across that a couple months ago. I was out at the ranch, Bitterhook Ranch, cutting grass, and I put it in my earbuds, and I'm listening to Pandora, and that song comes on. And as soon as I heard it, I stopped and actually made a note because I'm like, this is going to be one of the most powerful songs that we play this fall. And I even told Tabitha, I said, when this gets in the mix with churches around the country, it's just going to shoot up the charts. I mean, it's so powerful, the theology in that of God as our chain breaker. And just wait till the next time we play it and we tie it into a story of a guy who actually was broken out of chains. We're telling you that in a couple weeks. So wait on that. But this guy, Nehemiah, okay, we're digging in this guy from many, many years ago who was a visionary even before we put it on the back of a shirt. He was a visionary, a guy who grew up in Israel, and his people were taken captive and taken away. So let me kind of give you a picture that can translate to today. Say if Nehemiah lived in Gaston County, and you got 200,000 people who live here, and let's say a big group from Atlanta come on up and take us captive, haul us down 85 to Atlanta. So the Gaston County literally is empty. It's like it's dead. It's like 85 and 74 been broken down. It's like Franklin Square, a ghost town. It's like Tony's and Starbucks was closed down, and panic would be in Gaston County with none of these things here anymore. But Nehemiah was down there in, we'll say, in Atlanta, and good thing happened, and people are freed, and they go back to town, to Gastonia, but some were kept back there. And he was kept in a leadership position that, honestly, I think our middle school and high school boys would love, because he was the cupbearer. His job was to eat food and drink. Now, the risk in it, boys, is that his job was to protect the king. So if somebody poisoned it, you be the one who's dying to save the king. So there's the pros and cons to his job. But he's in a position of power because he's with the king every day. But let's say he's in Atlanta, and he's hearing about, okay, everybody went back to Gaston County, and they were, I guess, rebuilding it, he's thinking. They're recovering. Until the story we pick up today is that he hears that's not actually the case. They went back, but they didn't rebuild. The roads were still torn up. Walmart was still closed, and Starbucks was still out of business. And he's thinking, I know we can laugh about that, but he said in reality, the community, there was a depression there. There was a despair to it because they had not rebuilt, and they were, in fact, in danger. So our story about Nehemiah is about this visionary and how he embodied this phrase that I love, and in fact ties in to today's panel where it says life is messy, because we here at Vision, we move toward the messes. We move toward a mess. We don't move away from it. We don't shy away from it. We don't act apathetic to it or ignore it. But when there's a mess, we move towards it. And that's what we see in this guy, Nehemiah. He embodied the word vision. Remember last week we brought this word vision and had a definition for it. So I want you to help me with this. So first repeat, say vision. Okay, it's a picture of what could be, fueled by the conviction that it should be. All right, say that word again, conviction. Okay, conviction, when it gets inside of you and it causes passion. And this guy Nehemiah, when he heard about his hometown that was broken down, that was in danger, was at risk, there was something inside of him that was a conviction that burned inside of him. And for all of us, I think God put something inside of us that is a conviction that something makes us mad. That when there's a mess that we see that stirs our heart, it gives us what I call a holy discontent or a holy ambition. Now I want to talk about messes for a minute, because in our lives we have messes of different degrees. So first of all, we got any cat lovers in here? Any cat lovers? Okay, let's pretend you're like me, and one day you're in a hurry to leave your house. You're just about to head out, and you look over to the floor area, and you see a big pile of cat yak. Has anybody ever had that? Your cat threw up on the floor, and you got to decide in that minute, am I taking care of that, or am I walking out the door like I didn't see it? We're being real here. Sometimes you're just in a hurry. You're out the door, and you said somebody else was moving toward that mess. Okay, I'm not getting that one. Now, I had another one time where I got up early in the morning, walked out to the kitchen. Before I even turned the light on, I took a step, and I could feel water. You're like, okay, this isn't good. So I turned the light on, and our dishwasher had busted a line, and there was water all over our floor. And in those moments, don't you want to just like turn the light off and just go back to bed and say, Lord, please just let me wake up? And that was just like a nightmare, that there's not really a mess that's going to take my time and inconvenience and our money and filing insurance. It's a mess. I don't want to deal with that. Well, one of my other worst messes, and it's cool because actually the family who helped us with this is here today. They gave us a pool. Now, if you know anything about pools, boats, and horses, they're all money pits. Okay? So our friends, they said, hey, Matt, we've got an above-ground pool. We're just going to discard it, but if you want it, we'll give it to you. So I'm like, great. So we go to their house, and we take it all apart and put it in a trailer and drive it home. And oh, my goodness, we're trying to put this thing together. And, okay, the metal part of the pool, the walls, is supposed to go in this track that is like so thin, it's physically impossible to keep it standing up. So after literally hours in the sun bearing down, and the thing keeps falling over, and me and Meg and the kids are trying to put it up, and it's terrible, okay? To my friends, it is a mess. And I'm like, okay, you know me. I persevere. I'm a fighter. I said, Meg, I'm about to bail on this project. It's too big of a mess. We called her dad and her mom, and they came over, and they rescued us from this mess that truly now we enjoyed having a pool. But in that moment, it was a mess that I said, look, God, I don't want to possibly deal with this mess. Well, in our lives, too, I think we have serious messes. We have messes in relationships where you got somebody in your family that you're at odds. Or honestly, your marriage is at odds. Or in your finances, did anybody this week, when you sat down to think about your finances, you felt like you were dealing with a mess? And we're like laughing and stuff. We're like, seriously, sometimes to sit down and look like, God, this isn't going to work. It's not going to fit. How are we going to make it financially? It's a mess. Or maybe you got something medically where you're like, okay, we got family that medically they're struggling. Or we have things, we got a surgery coming up. Or honestly, I was the first one time on the site at a suicide. And as I walked up to it, I thought, man, I'm walking into a mess. And we have to choose whether it's personally with a mess or something we'll talk today about in our community or our world. And you got to decide, are you the type of person who moves toward the messes? Because in our community, we got broken kids. We got broken homes. We got kids struggling with the law, with addictions. Nationally, we got racial tensions. We got crazy stuff going on with our national anthem. Like, it's a mess. Are we willing to try to deal with it in a way that truly shines the light of Christ into the messes in our world? Well, our bottom line today is all about that, because I really believe when I look in God's word, I think he's saying to us that the light of Christ, it shines the brightest when we move toward the messes. That this world is getting darker and darker, and I don't think I need to convince you of that. Our world is getting darker. That the light of Christ, it shines brightest when we move toward the messes. Now, if you got your takeaway card, I encourage you to pull that out or get it on your phone, your tablet. And if you don't have one, please grab one on the way out, because what I did today is I gave you some resources, and I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm taking you actually through steps. I don't believe that the Christian walk is just a bunch of steps. It's not just a system, but I think there is a process that God gives us in a lot of different situations, and specifically for moving toward a mess and being impactful in your life. I do see a process that we can work, that we can live through the life of Nehemiah and take this process I'm going to walk you through today, and you get to hear today from another visionary. If you were here last week, you heard about Keith Mills, and he was up here, and he was talking about this bucket challenge we got going on, this bucket project. We're trying to get hundreds of buckets and send them down to Louisiana. And I want to encourage you, you see the buckets out front? Actually, the best way you can get a part of this is to go on our website and do the drop down for bucket project and give toward that. And every dollar goes right to that, because they're buying it in bulk. They got like truckloads of like rubber gloves. They got like truckloads of, sheetrock cutters and stuff. So if you want to be a part of filling buckets that move toward the mess in Louisiana, you can go online or give on Sundays and be a part of the bucket project. So I think Keith was up here last week as a visionary. We got another one coming today. I want to tell you how Vision Church is moving toward the messes. At Vision Church, we send people to Honduras and to Kenya to go and share the love of Christ in areas of the world that don't naturally hear it. We take shoe boxes. You'll see them down the hallway there. We take shoe boxes and encourage you to fill them up and bring them in so that we can take them to Operation Christmas Child and send them around the world to kids that need the light of Christ shining in their life. We move toward that mess. We take these buckets and send them to Louisiana. We go to Southwest Middle School and love on that school and those kids and those teachers and that faculty and say, that's a school with tough issues. We want to help. We move toward that mess. Every week, I meet with families, with parents, people that are going through, marriages that are falling apart, people that are struggling with depression and addictions. And me and you as a church, we are moving toward the messes locally to shine the light of Christ in a dark world. So today, as we take this concept of moving toward the messes, I believe God's got a vision for you in your life to move toward the messes. And we got a guy on our production team, heads up our AV team, Matthew Postel, who's a Stanley police officer. And I talked to him this week to fit in with a story I'd heard years ago from a guy in the Secret Service that says when you are an officer, you are trained to move towards a shooter. You're trained that when something happens and someone yells gun, and me and you, we drop or we run. But officers and Secret Servicemen, they move toward a shooter. And they're trained to do that. So when there's a mess that happens of that severity, they are trained to move toward the mess. We look in the life of Nehemiah, this guy, and I love Nehemiah. Actually, so much so that the first series we did here at Vision, back in January of 2015, it's called Blueprint. You can go check it out on our website where we took 6 weeks and unpacked the life of Nehemiah. Now today, my challenge is to repack it and put it into a spot where you can get something out of his life in one message. And I believe that God's got something personally for you today from the life of Nehemiah. Now, the first thing I see is a problem. So say problem. Because when he births something, say even like with this bucket project, a problem happens. And this guy, Nehemiah, remember in our story, he's like maybe down in Atlanta, and he's hearing about Gaston County that's supposedly back, and they're making it. But guys come to him and actually say, no, Nehemiah, there is a problem, a real problem that is a mess. We see this in Nehemiah chapter 1. We'll be reading out of Nehemiah today. Verse 3 says, they said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. Now, for us, it's humorous if Walmart or Starbucks isn't up and running. But in Jerusalem, with the wall broken down, it's dangerous. And literally, it is threatening them as a society. So Nehemiah is crushed by this. There is a problem that, like with these buckets, when Keith heard about it, somehow it crushed him. It gave him this holy discontent, this holy ambition to be a part of change and moving toward a mess. Now, the second word is waiting. So say waiting. Remember last week I talked about Jesus, the ultimate visionary, and how there was a time frame between the what and the how. When God puts something on your heart that burdens it, and I bet in the next 15, 20 minutes, you'll be able to think of what is that thing in your heart? Or maybe you already know it, and you say, man, I've got a what? I want to help single moms, or I want to help kids that are from broken homes, or I want to help the homeless, but I don't know how. Well, that's what this waiting. Most times there is a waiting period between when you get that what of a vision and the how. Now, Nehemiah chapter 1, his waiting period is 4 months. He has this time where he has to sit back and wait on God. Now, when we're in the waiting period, you might feel like at times you're saying, God, I'm not doing anything. You put something on my heart. I want to do something about it. Well, this isn't a time to do nothing. This is a time to do two things. Number one is to pray, and number two is to plan. Now, the prayer piece of this, you say, well, man, I kind of pray, and I talk to God about problems, and like when I need stuff. Let me tell you, the prayer element is so important because this is how you connect with God. And in fact, in the Starting Point series we did in the spring, we took one message and unpacked prayer and how to pray, and with even a structure to it. This ACTS, where there's adoration and confession and thanksgiving and supplication. So you can flip back to our Starting Point series, and if you read Nehemiah and then watch that message in Starting Point, you'll actually see that his prayer in Nehemiah chapter 1, he prays in that process. It's cool that he uses that frame to pray and talk to God, and then he plans. So that when the next part comes up, number 3, the opportunity. Say opportunity. The opportunity comes up that he's been waiting for his homeland, that breaks his heart. His job, remember guys, he works for the king. He tastes the food and the drink, so he's close to this king till one day, in Nehemiah 2, it says, the king said to me, what is it that you want? Now, God, if he puts something on your heart to burden you, and you say, okay, God, in the waiting, I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to plan. When your opportunity comes, you will not be ready. And the person you'll hear from today, she was ready in the opportunity, and God did something miraculous. So if anything that's hanging in the balance is the possibility of God using you to do something miraculous, I want you to be prepared for that. So that opportunity of looking for the opportunity. What's next, number 4, is move. So say move. Now, Nehemiah, he takes the most of his opportunity. The king miraculously says, okay, not only will I let you go back, I'm going to finance it. I'm going to give you safe passage. I'm going to give you all the supplies. He goes back to his hometown to be a part of the solution. Now, let's picture Nehemiah again, coming from Atlanta up to Gaston County. And he comes into town, and what he does not do is come in and say, I'm here, I'm the hero, and I'm ready to make all the changes. He comes in, and he takes time to move around town and evaluate. In Nehemiah, his story says, I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. Now, what this means is Nehemiah came into town, and he decided, before I'm going to tell anybody anything, I'm going to try to scope this out for myself. I'm truly going to try to research and evaluate what the problem is and if my plan can work. And when it says there were no mounts with me, that means he didn't take anybody. He's on one horse, going around town, checking it out. One of the key elements in this is that he needed wisdom. And I said, God, I need wisdom. Therefore, a little tag here for the Proverbs challenge. If you say, I want more wisdom, I want to know the right things to do daily in my life, but especially when God gives me the vision for moving toward a mess, if you get into God's word, a chapter a day in Proverbs, he will pour into you wisdom. So indeed, Nehemiah, he moves around the town, takes it to number 5. Invite. Say invite. Now invite, what this does here is it expands the vision beyond just what you can do. Because really, if what you're envisioning is big enough, you can't do it on your own. So what God does is he will give you a chance to invite people into the project. It's all about the right timing. It's all about the right way to invite them. But again, that ties in with the wisdom that God gives us. So in verse 17, 18, it says, Then I said to them, you see the trouble we're in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. So he's talking to people about it. Said, hey, come on, let's rebuild it. Let's rebuild this wall. We won't any longer be in disgrace. And I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. So he's basically saying, guys, look, I've got a plan. And truly, man, God is with me. He's already doing miracles. Will you let God stir your heart to come on board with me? And that's a big moment. When you feel like you've got something on your heart, but you need more people to do it, they replied, let us start rebuilding. And they probably put on vests and shovels and danced around and sang about it. Like that with great passion and said, you bet, let's do it. But seriously, for a vision that's big enough, God will invite other people through you into that project. Number 6, obstacles. So say obstacles. You got to expect obstacles. But obstacles even are static. There's even worse than that. There's going to be opposition that's going to come against you as you pursue something impactful with your vision. It's going to happen multiple times. It's going to come throughout the life of your vision. That's why you need to be in God's word. Like in verse 19, chapter 2, these mean guys, these ugly guys, they said, but when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, and they mocked us, they ridiculed us. Again, they weren't just obstacles, they were opposition against him. What is this you're doing, they asked. Are you rebelling against the king? If God puts something in your heart that's great to do, I promise you, Satan will come against you to discourage you. Say, man, you can't do that. Man, what are you thinking about trying to go back to school, to change careers, to do something that truly uses your talents to flourish and bless others? You can't do that. So what are you doing, caring about homeless? I mean, you're not big enough to make a difference in that. Or a mentor, man, why would you even help one kid? Tutoring, that's not going to make any difference. You're going to get an opposition against you that's going to try to get you to sink back and say, no, maybe I can't do this. And a lot of times what you do is pray, but sometimes there are tangible things you do to fight back against that. So Nehemiah, I love this. It shows him as a truly a proactive leader. In chapter 4, it says, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. All right, where are my middle school and high school boys? Anybody over there would like to hold a sword and chop off somebody's head? Okay? I mean, the boys are all on that. Okay, so when Nehemiah says, man, we're trying to rebuild this thing, and we need to pray, and we need to protect ourselves. So let's find all the middle school and high school boys. Let's give them swords, and they can stand there. If anything moves, chop their arms off. And we'll put some guys with them, right, Kevin, to oversee them, just to make sure that they're not getting out of control. But, Nehemiah says, we're gonna take action. We're going to be proactive in this. I like that. The other piece of this is not to get distracted. Because when obstacles and opposition come your way, a lot of choices will come your way. And Satan, he's crafty. He will try to get you distracted. He'll try to get you off track for your vision. And we see that in chapter 6, where these mean guys come again, Sanballat and Geshem. They sent me this message. Come, hey, let's meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. Nehemiah knows what's going on. He said, but man, they were scheming me. They were trying to distract me and trick me. He said, no, I'm going to send messengers to them with this reply. I'm carrying on a great project and cannot go down. I want you, if anything today, to lock in that phrase, I cannot go down. I'm on a great project. I'm trying to raise my kids in a godly way. This is my passion to help them and other kids to learn and grow. I'm not moving off this pathway. I cannot go down. He says, why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same message. Each time I gave them the same answer, because he had number 7, he had focus. So say focus. When you're trying to stay on track for what God's put on your heart, you need to focus on it. Stay focused on that vision. In Nehemiah chapter 2, back to that, it says, I answered these guys saying, the God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you guys, you're trying to distract me, to slow me down. Now, you have no share in Jerusalem or any historic right to it. He was staying focused because of what was on the line, what mattered. And that takes us to number 8. Personalize. Say personalize. What I love about this, about personalizing the project, if you go through Nehemiah chapter 3, what he does is he actually calls out the different gates around the town, and he assigns them to people. He says, okay, the High family, you get in the front gate. And he's saying, okay, the Osterly, you get in the back gate. And he's saying, okay, some of the middle school boys, you're getting the dung gate. And they're like, what? Man, we're watching the gate, like by the bathroom. Yeah, man, we need to protect every spot. And of course, the middle school boys be like, yeah, man, we're hanging out by the Porta Johns. We're watching the gate by the Porta Johns. Can we tip it over? Like, no. Hang on to your sword, guard the gate. But what Nehemiah did in this is he personalized it, and even more so in chapter 4. It says, after I looked things over, I stood up and I said to all these people, the nobles and the officials and the rest of the people, hey, don't be afraid of these guys. Don't be afraid of the attack that's coming. Remember the Lord, who's great and awesome, and fight for your families, for your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. When you're not just guarding a wall, when you're not just building a gate, but you're protecting your family, you'll bleed for that. You'll sweat for that. If necessary, you'll die for that. And Nehemiah, as a great visionary leader, knew that for the mess that he was moving towards and trying to fix, he had to personalize it in himself and in the other people with him, so he'd be willing to bleed for it. Now, we go on this journey, and we're going along and making things happen. If you're like me, a lot of times, you're just trying to check things off the list and keep moving forward on the project, and sometimes you forget number 9, which is celebrate. Say celebrate. Sometimes these are small wins, but in Nehemiah, it's great. You see it throughout the project, and especially at the end, when they throw like a big old, blast-off celebration. They have, lip syncs and drones and snow cones. And in chapter 12, look at this. At the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem, the Levites were sought out from where they lived and were brought to Jerusalem to celebrate joyfully the dedication with songs of thanksgiving, with the music of cymbals, harps, and lyres. They had a party. And so I encourage you, in your vision, as you move forward on it, make sure you celebrate the wins and don't just click things off on a list or be too hard on yourself and say, man, God's working. He's doing it. Now, you could end there. And a lot of times the story of Nehemiah does end there, but I like number 10, which is ongoing. So say ongoing. Ongoing means that your vision means so much that you want it to last beyond your life. You want to design a plan for ongoing success. This is succession. This is what here at Vision we call replacing yourself, that you need to think of yourself as a leader and truly shape yourself as a leader who can pass it on to somebody else. And in fact, one of my resources I want to recommend to you that I'm going to be taking people through this fall is the 21 Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. I encourage you, go on to Amazon, get you a copy of that, and the first week of October, as we start an online group on Facebook that's going to go through this one chapter at a time, you can be shaped as a leader, both for this project, but also in your home, in your marriage, in your school, to be shaped as a leader that God will work through. Now, what does this look like in your life? Because I'm going to bring somebody up in a minute that has had this flesh out in her life, but in your life, I believe God puts in you a passion that's different than mine, and it is so important what He's put in you, no matter what age you are, no matter what stage of life you're in. He's got something that He wants to do through you. So I'm going to bring up a visionary that let God work this process in her. And what I see in it is great celebration and also a lot of work. So if you would, welcome my favorite visionary, Meg Vanderbilt, to the stage. Come on up. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And if you want to grab a seat. Now, oh, yes, if you don't know her, this is my wife, Meg, and we've got our 3 kids, and we're the original 5, visionaries here at Vision Church. But it's so cool. It's so neat. Before God started this vision in me, He had already shown me this process lived out. He showed me from the what to the how at Bit of Hope Ranch. And if you don't know much about Bit of Hope Ranch, tell us. Show us some pictures. Tell us all about Bit of Hope Ranch.
Something special happens at Bit of Hope Ranch. We reach, rescue, and restore hurting children, families, and horses. And we do that by using these horses and animals for counseling and also for now this year, physically disabled riding, physical therapy for adults and children with disabilities.
Okay. And they're showing some pictures up there of this place. Tell us about the property and what it takes to run it out there.
Okay. We are on 50 acres right now. We have about a dozen horses, about 25 other small animals, and lots of cats. We don't need any more cats, so please don't give us your cat. Right, Courtney? But we do see lots of kids for our therapy groups. We saw some kids for the summer group, some at-risk boys, actually from Southwest, the school that we're sponsoring and partnering with. But a lot of things happen out there with the counseling, with the disabled riding. We also see school field trips that come out through there. So we have opportunities to touch a lot of people during the week.
When we're out there sometimes at the ranch, and I volunteer out there, people come out there for an event or for a day, and they'll say, "You are just living the dream. Oh, my goodness, look at this place. It's like 82 degrees and sunny, and all the animals are behaving." And
but where are they in January?
Oh, were they in January?
Yeah, they're not there.
No, they're not there. It's vastly different from just living the dream sometimes, especially when I think back to many, many years ago when God started this vision in you, Meg. So tell us from there to here.
Well, I have 3 kids, and really God started working on my heart when I had them. I'm a school teacher by trade and have had an extensive horse background that was more of a hobby and a side job. But when I had my children, I just remember holding my babies when they were young and knowing at the time that there were so many kids in foster care that did not have a home. There's over 200 kids in Gaston County. They don't have homes. They're called placements. And I thought that could be my Elena. That could be my Elijah that doesn't have a home. God, that's not right. You made enough homes in this area. Why do these kids not have a home? And so that burden stayed with me for quite a while when my children were young. And I would talk to Matt about it many, many nights about what can I do? The reality is we didn't come from money. Don't let the name Vanderbilt fool you. No, they don't even give us coupons to get in our summer home. But anyway, he was on church staff at the time. I was a stay-at-home mom. Financially, there was no way that we could adopt all 200 kids that I wanted to adopt and help. So God really started laying on my heart, you need to dream. You need to dream. So I got all high tech, and I went out to Walgreens and got a 39 cents a poster board and a pen. And I said, God, I've got all these ideas in my head, and I've been talking to you about it. I'm just going to start writing down. If I had all the money in the world, all the resources, all the answers, what would I do to help kids in our community? So I just started writing horses, dogs, cats, programs, summer camps, an orphanage. I was coming up with all these ideas, and I was so proud of it. I looked at it, and it just seemed too big. And so honestly, I rolled it up, and I put it in my closet. And I said, okay, God, I wrote it down, but I don't know where to go from here. So long story short, months went by. I was still talking to you about it at night. And finally, God said, you need to tell somebody. So I called a friend over, and I unrolled my poster board, and I didn't tell her why she was there. I just said, I just got something I want to share with you. And she said, I want to do this with you. So that gave me the confidence to get started. I started talking with more people about the type of project that I wanted to do, and God started getting more people involved.
And then I know he gave you a resource in Holy Ambition, and I know we got a slide with 3 different resources I recommend for you guys. One of them is by Andy Stanley. It's called Visioneering. If you truly want to be the engineer of a vision, then you're a visioneer, and it's an excellent book on that process. The second one is Holy Ambition by Chip Ingram. When he puts something on your heart that you can tell is from God, it's just burning in there. You got to go after it. Holy Ambition is a great book to go with that. And then Bruce Wilkinson wrote The Dream Giver, which talks in great story form about the obstacles you face and just all the different pieces of going after your vision, your dream. So I remember us riding back from the beach one year, and she'd read Holy Ambition, and we spent like the whole drive talking about it. So what happened from there?
Definitely. And Holy Ambition truly just helped me understand where I was in the process, just to let you know, because you guys are probably on various parts of your journey with whatever vision God's put on your heart. So definitely use those resources. So I had told these people, my friends, about I wanted to do this project. Now we needed land. So we were driving around looking for property. I teased that we were actually stalking people's property. Anybody that I saw a barn, I was wanting to know who they were and who lived there, and to see if we could start this ministry using horses and helping at-risk children. So we had found many properties that were amazing and beautiful and had what we need, and we would go make the pitch and talk to the owner. And we were told no, and no, and no. And there were many times where I just put that poster and put it back in my closet and thought, this just isn't going to happen. This just must have been a Meg dream. So finally, we did find a piece of property that was 50 acres, and they were asking $750,000. It was a real bargain. But we had a realtor who had a friend who was buying farms, and he said, how about I just introduce you to him? And I thought, God, if we could just get the down payment from this man, you're going to take care of the next month's payment, right? So I had enough faith for the down payment. So we had the guy come, and I have to say this property was in disarray. We waded through the weeds. The barn was 3 different shades of gray. The fences had paint hanging off of it. I didn't know paint could do that. It looked haunted, and it was really embarrassing. I found myself standing there talking to this gentleman about this, what I was asking him to do, and looking around, and I felt quite foolish at the time. So we had made our way down to the pond, and he finally looked at me and said, so what do you want me to do? Opportunity, right? So I said, well, we would love for you to give us the down payment so we could purchase this property for our nonprofit to help kids. And he just kind of nodded his head. It was a man of very few words. So he left. We thanked him, and I thought, oh, gosh, what was that about? 45
we got some money there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just left that part out.
He said he'd give $25,000 if somebody else gave $25,000. So one of our friends there said, I'll give $25,000, and he said $25,000. So we had $50,000.
We had $50,000 within a conversation. So that was an amazing start, but that still didn't cover the $750,000 down payment. So anyway, so 45 minutes, we got a phone call, and the realtor said, this gentleman actually is going to cover the down payment, and he's going to buy the property for you. And you can use it rent-free. So within that 45 minutes, God had totally performed this miracle. We have this amazing property with facilities that is allowing us to do more than what I had originally envisioned.
And even from that point, though, there was so much work. When you think about Nehemiah going around the town analyzing, the first 18 months
18 months.
We didn't see kids.
No, we got to know our John Deere tractor and our crowbar, and a lot of you guys and mission groups came out to help rebuild. This property needed a lot of work. It wasn't safe for any horses or kids to come on the property. So if you do come down the drive and see it now, you'll just think, oh, this is amazing. It was not amazing. In fact, there was a lot of opposition and obstacles that we had to overcome.
Absolutely. So in a nutshell then, how would you say that Bit of Hope is making a difference? Because that really is the heart behind this whole thing. Is it working?
It is. We see stories all the time from our counseling clients that come. For example, we have kids that have been in therapy a lot. Maybe they have a record, an addiction. There's some type of abuse. Let me go back to my heart of the foster kids. A lot of the foster kids truly struggle. There's some major attachment issues. They don't trust, and it's really hard for them to get integrated into a family. So God has at least allowed me not to adopt all 200 kids, but he's given me the opportunity that I can help other families that are adopting those children. So a lot of times we happen to be a last resort. Therapy's not working where these kids are, and so the parents are like, well, let's try this horse thing. Maybe that'll work. So we do see a lot of the tough cases that maybe just fall through the cracks or not getting help. But we have a lot of success stories that kids are getting off their meds, or they're actually going back to school, or they've been reunited with some family member, or they're overcoming that abuse or whatever's happened. So a lot of good things are happening. But I will tell you, it's scary standing on the edge and looking into the darkness like you were talking about. Mm-hmm. It's very safe, and it feels good to stay where you are and to be comfortable. And guys, if you're willing to look out at that darkness, it can be scary and it can be overwhelming at times.
And one important piece of this, when God puts something in your heart, and your reaction might be, like say if it's homeless people, you say, man, I want to go out and build something to help homeless people. For me and Megacene, as leaders of nonprofits, we're praying for God to stir people's hearts to come and help us. There's so many nonprofits in our town. If you get this passion in your heart for something, say, I gotta go start it. I gotta go build it. What would you say about somebody starting a nonprofit?
Don't start a nonprofit.
It is so hard. It's really hard. But if God put that in your heart and you go and do your research and say, wait, who's doing this well? And then you put vision behind us of saying, you find someone doing it well and we'll partner with you in it, then we can go ahead and put really some legs to what God's put in your heart, a vision. Instead of you just, well, I got to start something new, I got to recreate it. Because the reality is, I can't have everybody come up saying, hey, Pastor Matt, let's start this, and start this, and start this, and start this, and start. We can't do that. But we can partner with people that are doing it well. And trust me, these leaders are out there praying for you because they're saying, God, I need somebody who can come in and help with our homeless ministry, with our kid ministry, with our whatever. And when God pokes you and says, go and help them, that's how God will move and have you truly move toward the mess. Now, as we finish, in the short term, how can I help at the ranch?
We are volunteer-based, so if you're interested in coming out to help with, we're having a big event October 14th and 15th. If you just want to come be hands out there, we need help with that. We need donors. We are a nonprofit, and we also need people to share our message. Let people know. You hear of people in the school pickup line or wherever, they're struggling, there's a kid issue. Let people know that we are a resource.
Okay. So back to our bottom line. I asked Meg to stay up here while we pray at the end, but our bottom line, that truly, I mean, the light of Christ, it shines best. It shines brightest. It's the most effective when we move toward the messes. I would hope if you walk away from today and you feel God stirring something in your heart, that you would know that's God wanting to shine his light through you. In our world, it's getting darker and darker, and he'll do something with a bucket or with a ranch or with something smaller that he wants to shine through you. And students, this isn't just for the adults. Because I tell you, we've seen students do amazing things in their home, in their neighborhood, in their school. And if anything, that inspires us then as adults to get out of our seats and go do something about the messes. It's our calling. And in fact, our leader, Jesus, who I talked about last week, he modeled this for us, not just in going after the big mess, but honestly, after going after my mess. That he looked at me and he looked at you and he said, you're a mess. And I'm not going to avoid you. I'm not going to begrudgingly allow you to come to me. I'm going to move toward you and work to move toward your mess and help you clean up this mess of sin. So God, he wants to work in us and through us. And I love the fact that we're creating a church of people who want to move toward the messes.